Good afternoon, everybody. Hold on, let me just get to my slides here. Okay, while they're working that one out, today I'm going to talk about real estate data. There's a lot of data questions in the audience. I'm going to give you the answers, okay? So my name is Lynette Sacchetto. I have been living in Dubai for the last 15 years. I'm originally from the south side of Chicago, born and raised. And I came to this lovely city, which I call home, in 2007. My background, let me give you a little bit about my background. My two passions are technology and real estate. And I started both of them at a very young age. When I was about 7 years old, I had my first programming class. It was a basic programming class. And my mother bought me a Commodore 64. Which I'm dating myself, I realize that. And at the same time, since I can remember, my mom owned an apartment building in the south side of Chicago. And we had about 8 units, multi-family building. And she was a single mother. And I helped her with the maintenance, with the rents, collecting the rents, finding tenants. And it was like my own little personal Monopoly game. And I absolutely loved it. I fell in love with real estate and technology at a very young age. I then, my first job was as a help desk professional while I was in high school for a very large international bank. Then when I got into uni, this was right before the dot-com boom, I was very fortunate to be in a position where I was able to work with Microsoft and Sun Microsystems. And I specialize in cutting edge technologies, which are the base technologies of pretty much everything that we use today. I consulted for them, client-facing, for about 10 years. Now, during that time, I would buy and sell real estate, just a hobby. So I would buy buildings, put them into my portfolio. I would buy houses, fix them up, flip them, sell them. Then, after, I wanted to take a break. I was consulting for about 10 years and I was tired of living on a plane and in hotels. So at this time, I was living in Las Vegas, Nevada. And I decided to get my real estate license. I was buying so much property at the time and paying so much in broker commission on the sales side. I said, why not? Let me just get my license and be a part of the transaction. So I did. And I absolutely fell in love with the business. Before it was a hobby, it then became a profession. So I joined a business brokerage that did everything, but they specialized in business brokering. So I did business brokering, I did residential, and a little bit of commercial. And this was about 20 years ago. And technology was just starting to be used in the real estate business. And me, being a techie at heart, I used everything that I could get my hands on. I had a website. I was using CRMs. I found lead generating tools, which at that time was cutting edge. And I was able to be in the top 1% of sales in Las Vegas for 3 years. Then I moved to Dubai in 2007. Now, mind you, I left the US using an MLS system, having access to a lot of data. And when I moved here, thank you, Mohammed. When I moved here, we had newspapers. So, one quick thing, I'm Director of Research and Data for the Property Finder Group. That's what I do, that's my day job. Property Finder is the Zillow here of the MENAT region. So at that time, Property Finder was a magazine. And you also have Gulf News, which is a very popular business paper here in the region. And you would find your property by flipping through the pages. Or you would find information on property by flipping through the magazine and the newspaper. And at that time, when I first arrived into Dubai, I was asked to run it was a franchise real estate company out of Canada called Home Life. And they had a few offices here. So I came and I ran the offices. This was before RERA, so before the Real Estate Regulatory Authority was formed. This was in 2000, right before it was formed in 2007. So there was no laws, there was no rules, and there was no regulations. So I then decided to take time off. I had two lovely girls who are sitting here today. And during that time, I made it a mission to bring data to the real estate market. There were so many things that were happening at that point where every time I wanted to turn and look for data, I didn't have it. And as a consumer, it was very frustrating, but also as a real estate professional, for me, I couldn't understand how to go about my business without having actual factual data. So data, facts, and statistics collected together for reference or analysis. Every single day, from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, you utilize data to make decisions, and companies are utilizing your data, for example, social media. Real estate data, all of you guys know here. Real estate data is information about a property, characteristics, their value, and their ownership. Here in Dubai, these are the type of asset classes, as all of you know, that we have here. All of these can be acquired in a freehold fashion. Of course, you have non-freehold, which is not available to expats, and you also have leasehold. Some of the data attributes that we have here in Dubai are common to what you would have in the US. So you have address, location, built-up size, plot size, bedrooms, listing price. Yes, we have historical transactions. I will get to that. Service fees, transaction fees, completion status. Is it off-plan? Is it a ready property? The property amenities, what kind of views you have, the community and the building amenities, and there's hundreds of them that's available openly through the government today. So let me talk a little bit about the past of Dubai, today, and tomorrow. This is one of my favorite pictures. So the first upper left-hand corner is now where you see the downtown area. This is just 20 years ago. So these pictures are very important for me when I speak to, especially to Americans, because coming from the US, you think, oh, why doesn't it work like this? Or why don't you have this? Or, data is very common. You have to think, this was just 20 years ago. Dubai is a very, very young city. And in the years that it has evolved, so much has happened in such little time. The far right-hand corner, this is where we're at today. So that was the first high-rise on Sheikh Zayed Road 20 years ago. This is a video. I'm gonna play it. This will kind of give you a little bit more perspective on the growth of Dubai. It's one of my favorite videos. It was put out a few years ago by Knight Frank, actually right after the pandemic hit, about 2 years ago. It's a 4-minute video. And it really gives a good perspective on how fast Dubai has grown. is such a good video. It gives me the shivers every time I see it, and I see it a lot. Okay, so you just saw the history of Dubai. Now these are the milestones in Dubai real estate. So in 2006, the freehold law came into effect. So that means that anyone that is an expat can buy property in freehold areas here in Dubai. In 2007, RERA was formed, which is a real estate regulatory authority under the Dubai Land Department. In 2008, so this was a very important year for data here. 2008 is the year that data started to get properly electronically recorded. So whenever you're looking at data, statistics, indexes, you're gonna see the data from 2008 until current for sales. 2008 also Okud was introduced. So Okud, as you guys have learned from the speaker before me, it's the title deed for off-plan. And then in 2010, Ijari came into effect. So Ijari is the registration of a rental contract, whether it's for residential or commercial. So anytime you rent a property, you have to register it with the government, and typically it's a one-year contract, and that's called Ijari. In 2012, Ijari data started to get electronically recorded. So again, anytime you see statistics, analysis, indexes regarding rental data, it's gonna start from 2012 to current. Then in 2015, DLD launched their open data platform. So this will be equivalent in the US to what you would find on a county's assessor's page. And then in 2019, the first official house price index of the city of Dubai was launched. It's called Muasher, and Muasher means index in Arabic, and I'll talk a little bit about that further on. So these are the data sources that you have here available to you here in Dubai. Now again, I'm specifically talking about the Emirate of Dubai only. So you have the Dubai Land Department Open Data Platform, and I'll just start from here. So what do you have on DLD's website? This is the website you go to, Dubai Land Department, and you will see all transactions for sales, rentals, mortgages, gifts. Gifts is very popular here because property is gifted from family to family. For freehold and non-freehold, residential, commercial, and land. All of this is publicly available in real time today. Indices. So Muasher, as I spoke about, was launched in 2019, and it's the official house price index for sales and rental data here in Dubai. And that's also on the Dubai Land Department website as well as on the Property Finder website. And research. Every quarter, biannually, annually, Dubai Land Department puts out research reports for both the residential and the commercial market. Next one is data intelligence from real estate portals. Now, as I said, I work for Property Finder, which is equivalent to the Zillow of the MENAT region. What kind of data do we have? Of course, we have our listing data. We have our search and demand data. So when I first started working for Property Finder 5 years ago, I said, I want to see the trends and patterns of people looking for property or sending inquiries for property. What are people looking for? Where are they looking at? This is where we can get into predictive analysis. No one was doing that in the market yet. So it took me a bit, but I got everyone to understand the importance and the value of it. And today that data makes millions of dollars for our real estate broker clients. Lead inquiry data, of course, that goes into the search and demand data. And then days on market. You guys are very familiar, and that's very common to you in the US market. Here it is not. Still, days on market, it's not really recorded or publicly available, but we do have it, and it is available to the real estate brokers here. Real estate data platforms. So you have a few in the market. These are private data platforms, real estate based, of course. One of them being Data Finder, which is under the Property Finder group. It's a data platform that I started 3 years ago, and it has all real estate data related. It has anything from Property Finder data, it has the government data, it has the indices, it has the search and demand data, it has everything that you need to find data-wise on this platform. It is the B2B platform, so it is available obviously to the government as well as to the real estate brokers here in Dubai. Then of course, brokers have data. So brokers really here in Dubai, took a bit for them to tap into their data and to understand their data and make their data work for them. Of course, they have transaction data. They're constantly dealing sales and rentals. They have information on the people who are looking for property, the people that are searching on their website, the demand that's coming from the properties that they're selling and renting. They have their own website analysis and demand data. All of this is widely used today, and it really helps the real estate brokers understand how to grow their business development. And of course, social media data came in recently, past couple years, and this is what the brokers obviously use to find the patterns of the people that are contacting them through the social media platforms, so they know how to retarget them later with the types of properties. Then you have open data available on Dubai Pulse. So Dubai Pulse is an initiative from Digital Dubai, also known as Smart Dubai. Here you have over 800 data sets from every single branch of the government in Dubai, with Dubai Land Department included. You have land and unit data, you have registration, transaction, developer and project data. So every single developer that's listed, every single project that had existed, currently existing, or under evaluation is on Dubai Pulse. Licensing, who is licensed, which broker's licensed, which company, which agency's licensed, which developer's licensed. Valuation data. So you also find valuation on data on the Dubai Land Department, as well as on Digital Dubai, or Dubai Pulse as we call it. Municipality data, this is maps, affection plans, drawings, CAD drawings. Roads and transportation, and forest, water, and electricity. These are the most common that are used within the real estate industry. The next one is an open data platform from the UAE government. So this covers all the Emirates. It's called bayanat.ae. Has over 2,600 data sets. Anything from GDPs specific to the sectors, to health, to energy, education, finance and banking, tourism, immigration, visas, foreign investment. All of this you can find on bayanat.ae, and it is updated regularly. So what do we do with all this data here in Dubai? So we use data science. Now you hear a lot of these fancy words like AI and machine learning. This is how we apply it here in Dubai. So what is data science? So data science is an interdisciplinary field that uses scientific methods, which is AI, machine learning, which is part of AI, processes, algorithms, and systems to extract knowledge and insights from noisy, structured, and unstructured data. This is used all over the world. Real estate data is very noisy. It's very unstructured until you structure it. And this is what we do at Property Finder and with Data Finder and with the government. We structure it, we use machine learning and AI to make sense of the data and to give quality products to the consumers as well as to the brokers. I'll give you an example. On the listing, when you go to Property Finder, you see 20 pictures for a property. Before data science existed, you would see a picture of a toilet, picture of a tile, picture of a chair, something completely non-relevant to the property itself. Now, with AI and machine learning, we learn what a picture is, and we learn what a good quality picture is. So we take that noisy, unstructured data, and we structure it. And we create a meaningful product so that me as a consumer, when I'm looking for a property, I'm going to see a beautiful living room with furniture. I'm going to see a nice view looking at the ocean from my balcony. These are the type of pictures that I will see when I'm looking at a property listing. And of course, this is all due to data science. Now, here in Dubai, I briefly spoke about it before, Muasher, and I'm going to go into detail because this is really important. And I tried to gear this presentation today towards you guys. And I know that predominantly it would be Americans here, real estate professionals. And you're trying to bring your clients here, either open up a business or bring in your clients as investors. And one of the biggest questions foreign investors have is, where's the data? Is it a transparent market? What can you show me that makes this market valid to me to invest in? And in any other country in the world, that answer is an index. So an index is a guideline for consumers, financial institutions, governments, investors, on how a market moves at any point in time. How do they work? So an index will value an asset over time by tracking its performance. Every index has a base year, and I'm gonna go into detail on this here in Dubai. And it's updated periodically. So it's either updated monthly, quarterly, or yearly. Why do we need a house price index? So I just gave you one reason a few seconds ago. But another reason is because simple averages do not work. When I first moved here and started in the real estate market here, consultancies had spreadsheets with averages on property prices for overall Dubai, communities, maybe for a particular apartment building, or a sub-community for a villa. Averages are good, it's a good starting point, but it doesn't give you a scientific method of an index. And also, your basket of goods is not the same at any given point of time. So what a property 10 years ago was worth, that same property today can be doubled. And if a like for like is built next to it, you don't include that into your basket of goods, which is the old school way of doing your averages for an index. The index takes care of all of that. So the problem, as I said, that we're trying to solve is that a property has a lot of variation characteristics, and they vary through time, and transactions aren't frequent. So it's not like going to the grocery store every week and you're buying the same good. Transactions happen every few years in the States, every 10 to 20 years sometimes. So how do we solve it? We solved it with machine learning. So before, as I said, prices were calculated average on a spreadsheet. Today, it's calculated using hedonic regression models and using Python today is the most common language for indexes. Which leads me to Muasher. So as I said, Muasher is the first official house price index for the city of Dubai. It's publicly available on the Dubai Land Department website, as well as on the Property Finder website. And this was an initiative about 9 years ago that came to me when I was at a think tank for Dubai Land Department. And I was chairing the table on how to bring more foreign investment into Dubai. And after hours of talking with developers, there was consultants there, it was about a table of 20 people. I said, why don't we create an index for Dubai? And everyone's like, oh, well, the data's not publicly available. How are we gonna create an index? We don't have an index here. There isn't an index in the entire region. Fast forward to 2019, Property Finder signed an exclusive partnership with Dubai Land Department, and Muasher was launched. So I'm gonna go through this really fast because I know it's the end of the day, so the Muasher methodology is based on the hedonic regression model. This is the most popular model for indexes around the world. So you have HomeTrack in the UK, you have Case-Shiller in the US, you have CoreLogic all over the world. All of their indices are based on a hedonic regression model. And basically, it takes the attributes of a property, including the amenities, as well as outside factors such as view, close to metro station, close to the main road. Pass through this. Now, there are 3 types of hedonic regression models. You have the Las Perez, which tends to go on the higher favorable side on how it looks at the characteristics. You have the Pache model, which tends to go on the lower side when it looks at the characteristics. And then you have the Fisher model, which is a double imputation index. And this is what Moasher is based on here in Dubai. The reason why we chose the Fisher model, and it took us a year. It took us a year working with our data scientists as well as the Dubai Land Department to find the perfect hedonic regression model for the region, because it is very dynamic. You have off-plan property, you have secondary property, you have freehold, you have non-freehold. It takes all of this into consideration. And this is the final imputation. So the sales index, as I said earlier, we have a base year. That base year is 2012. And the month is January, and the quarter is Q1. For the rental index, the base year is 2013, January being the base month, and Q1 being the base quarter. This is the index today. It comes out monthly. We do it monthly, quarterly, biannually, and annually. And you guys can go on the Dubai Land Department website, and you can do all the research, but as you can see, during COVID, we did very well. The market did very well. And what you're seeing here is the monthly index increase to the right. But again, I'm not going to go into detail. I'll let you guys do this later. I have quite a few slides to go through here. This is the rental index. Okay, I touched upon a little bit what the importance of the real estate index is to a fast-growing global city. It's transparency. When you have investors, especially foreign investors, they want to know the kind of market that they're getting into. They need to see historical data. They need to understand it. Now, after the index came out here, after Moasher came out, the JLL Global Real Estate Transparency Index came out in 2020. It comes out every 2 years. And Dubai jumped to the 36th position. And the reason, the main reason, was due to Moasher, and is now considered at the cusp of transparency. The report results said that Dubai's position continues to strengthen as the most transparent market in the MENA region. The initiatives, Moasher, as you can see, and this is taken from the report, I didn't write this. So the most significant initiative was Moasher, which was launched in 2019. And as far as best practices is concerned, it continues to be an important step forward for Dubai. And it is widely used by the UAE Central Bank, by the IMF, across the world. So this is how it's scored within the report. And this report you can download from free on the JLL website. You can get a lot more insight than what I'm talking about today. It is now considered semi-transparent, Dubai, as a real estate market. As I said earlier, it is now at the cusp of transparency. That's when the sales index came out. The rental index came out January of this year. This report will be coming out this year as well. So I'd be very curious to see if now after the rental index has been launched, if we have crossed over into the transparency side, which would be a major accomplishment for the city of Dubai. Okay, so this is probably the most interesting part for you guys, is current real estate market trends here in Dubai. All right, 2021, record-breaking year. So we broke a 12-year record for all-time highest value since 2009. This is during COVID. So there was a 110% increase in value and a 75% increase in volume compared to 2020. So we recorded over 61,000 transactions worth over 151 billion dirhams. So this is a historical, this is something that here in the front row you're probably very interested in. All this data comes from the Dubai Land Department website. We just take it, we curate it, we clean it up, and we make sense out of it. So this is starting from January 2020 to February 2022. As you can see, so the blue is off-plan transactions, the orange is secondary, and then you have your total, and then your year and your change. So let me just really quickly go over the history of what happened right before COVID, during COVID, and where we're at now when it comes to Dubai real estate transactions for sales. So before COVID, at the end of 2019, especially in the second half of 2019, sales transactions started climbing, and there was a sentiment building back up into the market after a pretty stagnant 2 years. And we were actually doing really well. And you can see that here in January, February. Then, as you can see, in March, April, May, we, like every other single real estate market in the world, was affected by COVID. Now, one of the things that happened during COVID is we did not stop transacting property. The land department figured out a way to digitally transfer properties, especially for foreign investors. So we didn't stop. They put a process together where there was Zoom calls between the judges and the buyers and the sellers. It was a bit complicated, but it happened. And we still transacted over 1,000 properties when we were in the thick of a lockdown. Then, as soon as we came out of the thick of the lockdown, transactions soared, and they soared ever since. And just like any other market in the world, there was a huge migration from the city to the suburbs, from apartments to villa townhouses. And as I said earlier in my presentation about search and demand data from the property portals, or even from your own websites, from the brokerage websites, we saw a 400% increase in searches for villa townhouses in April. If you fast forward to July, we had the highest amount of villa transactions ever sold in Dubai. It was predictive. It told us what was going to happen. This is the beauty and the power of data. So as you can see, we've done very well transaction-wise. We've hit, as I said, multiple records for value, volume, off-plan, secondary, villa townhouse. During the pandemic, there was a slight change between the balance of off-plan and secondary. So off-plan for 2 years before the pandemic was pretty much 50-50 with secondary. Then during the pandemic, I would say the beginning of 2020, the first half of 2020, it shifted to 30. So secondary market transactions were at 70%, off-plan was at 30%. And the reason being is because, number one, developers were not launching new products. What they decided to do, smartly so, is they decided to concentrate on their current projects under construction and complete them. And it was probably one of the best moves that they did. It wasn't until the second half, actually, the last quarter of 2020, that they started launching new projects, but only within their current projects, and they were all villa townhouse community projects, which sold out within 2-3 hours. So as you can see today, November was one of the highest transacting months ever. It was the second highest. And February, we're at over in February, we were over 6,000 transactions. The top sales areas in Dubai in 2022, here they are. For apartments, Business Bay, JVC, or Jumeirah Village Circle, Dubai Marina, Dubai Creek Harbor, and downtown Dubai. For villa townhouses, Dubai Land, which is the area that has the most concentrated villa townhouses here in Dubai. The Valley, which is a new project by Emaar that's still under construction and selling off-plan, as well as Arabian Ranches 3, Town Square, and Dubai South. Dubai South is where the expo site is at. Mortgage volume. So just like transactions, we had a record-breaking year in 2021 for mortgages, all-time high for mortgages. Now, mortgages never really was a big part of the market. Only about 5% of the market was mortgages. This is a very cash-heavy market. But what we started to see right before COVID, and especially during COVID, a lot of end users, a lot of consumers were looking to buy their first property here to live in. Before, Dubai was like a 3 to 5 year city. Your visa is for 3 years. So you come with that mentality. I'm only gonna stay here for 3 years, let's see how it goes. Well, I've been here 15. Most of the people I know have been here 10 years plus. So they're making roots here. When it comes to the EBOR, as you can see, there was a downward trajectory. It fell by almost 80%, and then it stayed pretty flat during COVID up until today. It wasn't until like a couple weeks ago we're starting to see interest rise, just like in the US. You can get a pretty attractive mortgage product right now for about 2.99%. Rental, EJARI data. Okay, so this is the number of rental contracts that we've had since January 2021. As you can see, it fluctuates. In October, we had one of the highest rental contract month ever. And like I said, rental contracts are on a yearly basis. So these are year contracts. And this is for resident,
What do you
right?
think attributed to the dip between November 21st and February? You think it was more sales during that time? What does the data show?
If you look at the average here, the average is, well, off the top of my head, it's about a little bit over 30,000 the average, right? Then in November, we doubled. So what started here in October? Expo. That's the Expo effect. These are the top rental areas in Dubai in 2022. So for apartments, Discovery Gardens, Al Farjan, International City, and Dubai Marina. These are always the top three for the last, year and a half, 2 years. They just fluctuate between each other. And the top villa townhouse communities are Mirdif, which is a non-freehold area, Emirates Living, and Arabian Ranches 2. Supply. Now, you cannot talk to an investor about investing in Dubai without talking about supply. And I've met quite a few of you over the past few weeks, especially some that have come earlier, who have pinged me on LinkedIn to have conversations, and this is a very hot topic, because you hear a lot of opinions in the market, but data beats all opinions. So in 2018, it had a little bit, the dark pink is apartment, then you have villa townhouse, which is second, and then serviced apartments, which is the third one here. So if you look at, since 2018, we had a pretty steady flow of supply. Now I remember in 2016-17, everyone was running around saying, we have too much supply, how is this gonna get absorbed, where's the demand gonna come from? It did. And actually, if you look at certain areas, especially the popular freehold areas where investors purchase in expats, we are undersupplied, especially today. Why? Properties are moving extremely fast, cannot keep up with the demand. If you look at the villa townhouse segment, as I said before, that was the hot asset class that we had during COVID, as it is in many other countries. We only have about 6,000 villa townhouse communities coming up in the next year. So 2021 completed, we had 51,000 units completed. 48,000 were apartments, 8,000 were villa townhouse, and 2,000 were service apartments. If we look what's scheduled, so this is an estimate, for 2022, we have 31,000 apartments, 9,000 villa townhouse units, and about 6,000 service apartments. Demographic data. Now this is the question a lot of people ask, how do we get demographic data? We hear so many different things. As you saw earlier, bayanet.ae, you get demographic data there for all of UAE. And then for the other parts, you need to look at other sources, credible sources, of course. So here's a breakdown. UAE, as of March 2022, had a little over 10 million. This is all of UAE. 8.92 million are expats. So that's more than 80%. 1.16 million, Emirati population, 1.16 million. 3.49 live in Dubai. So Dubai has 3.49 million people. You hear a variation between 3.2 and 3.4. Sharjah is the second emirate with 1.7, and Abu Dhabi the third with 1.5. Of those numbers, 6.93 are males, and 3.15 are female. And this is a breakdown by age. Now, when you're looking at sales data and you're looking at demand data, what people are looking for, the areas, what they're buying, this is the type of data that helps you. So in 2006, as I said earlier, the freehold law came into effect. Today, we have over 700,000 freehold units in the market. 700,000. Now, we have something called the 2040 Urban Master Plan. This is an initiative from the government where they want to grow the population, this is for Dubai, where they want to grow the population of today to about 5.4 million people in the next less than 20 years. What does that mean? That means we're going to need about 500,000 units in the market by 2040 to accommodate this growing population, which is about 24,000 units a year. And just to recap, in 2022, we're expected 47,000. So just kind of give perspective of the growth of the city and where we're looking to go in the next 20 years. So going back to the age demographic of buyers here in Dubai. As you can see, the largest group is here, 36 to 45 years. This is of all buyers in Dubai in 2021. Now, buyers, the top buyers in 2021 came from India, Pakistan, UK, Russia, Saudi, Canada, France. Now, this data is from Mortgage Finder, which is a sister company to Property Finder and the largest mortgage broker here in Dubai. We don't have this type of data available yet from the mortgages that are done and registered with the land department, which is why I use the Mortgage Finder data. And this is just a breakdown, just a fact sheet of the type of borrowers we have, their age groups, what they're looking for. So 94% were residents that were looking for mortgages. So only 6% were non-residents. But the mortgage products do exist for your investors if they need it. Various different information, their industries, their nationalities, their age ranges. Of the 94%, over 90% were looking to buy property for themselves. So they were looking to get on the property ladder and own a home here in Dubai. 78% were for the secondary, so ready property as we call it. And then the rest were for off-plan, or the prime property market as we call it. And of course, the most common is a conventional, and we also have Islamic loans as well. These were the top areas where mortgages were acquired. So as you can see, little familiar areas for the top sales and top rental areas. Same applies here. 64% were for villa townhouses. Now, why has Dubai been so successful? Why does everyone want to come here and buy property and invest? Why are you here? Dubai has invested a lot of resources and have put forward a lot of proactive initiatives on bringing foreign investment and keeping the residents here. We have completely gone through a digitization, a digital transformation. And one of the examples I gave you was during COVID, when we were in complete lockdown. We couldn't leave. We couldn't even go to our trash can in front of our house for, I think it was like a month. And the land department said, no, we're not going to stop transactions. We have a pipeline. We're going to figure out how to transfer these properties. And they did, digitally. And just like that, there's many initiatives in the prop tech sector, fintech sector here in Dubai. We have incubators. We have special government initiatives where they loan money for companies to come here. We have so they gave golden visas, long-term visas based on your investment portfolio or based on your talent. if you're a data scientist, if you're an artist, if you completed your master's from a particular university, you're granted a golden visa. We also have 100% ownership of companies here. You don't no longer need a local sponsor at 51%. You can own your company 100% outright. Also, property here is very attractive. And here, the base net yield for Dubai is 5%. But if you look in some other community, if you go community specific, you have net yields as high as double digits. Of course, you have attractive mortgage products, but I think this was the case pretty much around the world, very competitive mortgage products. And Dubai has made a lot of effort for transparency and public-private relationships. Muasher was done through a PPP. There was a MOU signed last year to bring all of the data from Dubai Land Department to the consumers via the portals. They've done a lot to open up all of the data and history and become as transparent as they possibly can. I'm going to leave you with one of my favorite quotes. Without data, you're just another person with an opinion. We have the data. You just need to find it and know where to look. This is my contact details. Any questions?
When you were reading the foreign investor statistic, where does the United States rank? Do you have that?
This is very interesting. And this, for me, is very exciting, being an American. US was never in the top 10. And it was a few months ago, I heard a statistic that Dubai was in a top 3 destinations for Americans. I was like, where did this come from? Now, granted, during COVID, tourism did not stop. We had lockdown for about a month and that was it. I mean, business kept on going, tourism kept on going, and this is what brought a lot of Europeans into the market, a lot of French, Swiss, German, Italian, and they were buying a property like crazy. But when I heard that stat and researched it a little bit more, it was true. Dubai is now in the top 3 destinations, tourist destinations for Americans. And for the first time, we are in the top 10 for buying property. It's very exciting.
About post-COVID and people buying properties and not so much worrying about the 3-5 year visa. Machine learning, is it telling you anything about how long those people are going to keep those properties?
There's so many characteristics. So when it comes to predictive analysis, we don't have crystal balls. But we can use certain data points like I showed you earlier. So we saw that there was a very high increase of searches for villa townhouses. And 4 months later, we had the highest amount of transactions for villa townhouses. You can use various different data sources to try to see where the market is going. Now, I spoke about the 2040 plan. So you know Dubai is going to do everything that it can to reach that plan, because we do. That's what we do here in Dubai. So they want to increase the population by 5.4 million. They want to bring in 500,000 units into the market by 2040. They will. And they will bring the people, they will bring the investors, they will bring the companies, they will bring the students and the universities. This will happen. Do I see transactions dipping? Do I see something happening after Expo? No. I still see that the market will continue on a steady rise. Of course, we have rising interest rates, which is going to have an effect on mortgages, inflation, rents are going up. So we're going to have quite a few bit dynamics in the market happening. But with all of the plans that Dubai has and what we have seen from the past to today, anything that Dubai puts its mind to, it has succeeded and will succeed. And I think the reason why all of you are here today is I think you see that, and I think that you want to bring your clients and maybe some of you, even your businesses here. This is the excellent time to do so.
I'm from Las Vegas too, so hi. For Property Founders, is that the website, right?
Property Finder, yeah.
Property Finder. Can someone list their property for sale by owner, or it is only through an agency? And is that just like MLS, that they pay a fee to be a member? Can we be a member being outside to just go in and see inside listings, and then email it to our clients? You know, just like MLS, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
So there isn't an MLS system here, which is where all the agents tap into and list their properties. That concept does not exist here. So you have real estate portals, Property Finder being one of them. As an owner, you cannot list your property on Property Finder. Only licensed RERA, certified licensed brokers can list their property. We don't list outside properties on Property Finder. So, like I said, Property Finder is the largest in the MENAT region. We have 8 offices around the MENAT region, with UAE being one. So only the properties within the UAE are listed on the portal.
One more question, as you compare yourself to Zillow, up until Zillow was regulated through other entities, Zillow was not too well managed because properties will be sold and no one had a control if it's off market, is it still on, how much it was sold for. Do you have some control that if it is sold, you have to put it in sold, or we can look at properties that are long time gone, but they're...
Yeah, so this is a problem that's faced in the US, and of course it's a problem all over the world. Here in Dubai, the government has been extremely proactive in working with Property Finder, and as I just mentioned about the MOU that was signed last year to share all of the data, part of the purpose of that MOU is to clean up the listings that are no longer valid, that they've been sold or rented, or that are bait. We call them bait listings. And that is just so that we can improve the real estate experience for consumers, because it is one of the biggest pain points for consumers. So yes, we are working with the government. We have close partnership with them to make sure that we have the most qualified available properties on the website. We also verify properties, so we look at the title deeds, we look at the passports of the sellers and verify that they are in fact the owner, this property does in fact exist. What is on the title deed is what matching on the listing. We do take that extra step. We don't have to, but we do take that extra step as well.
Hello. Substantially, thank you first of all, because the information provided was very, very interesting. You have a complete. What I want to ask you a very simple question regarding the open data, because you principally have talked about institutional data. But what about, for example, the open data platforms that are used here in Dubai, for example? Because now, obviously, the data market is becoming an asset, and obviously making real estate investments and operations become complicated. No? Nowadays, if you want to make good real estate investments, you need a lot of data. So substantially, also the quality and the depth of the analysis you make is becoming more and more important than in the past. No? What I consider is probably the world is moving toward a multi-criteria approach also in the data. So not only economical data are important to understand the real estate, to understand the market. The market is complicated, no? So I want to know, because of it, I want to know something about also the open data, because substantially what I consider from my perspective, in many cases, from what I see from my perspective, the institutional data sometimes are not enough, or they do not provide enough information to take out what you need for analyzing the properties in an in-depth knowledge. No?
Yes.
I don't know if you understand, sorry.
Yeah.
Maybe a little complicated my question.
No, I get it. So this
open
is why
platforms that everybody can, for example, can log in. Also, the citizen, for example, can update data in them. Like, for example, OpenGIS, geographic information systems.
So we're not quite there yet. I know CoreLogic has kind of accomplished that in Australia and the US. Which is why I showed you all the various different places to gather data, which is what we do, what I do. So to do my job and to understand the market and to be the subject matter expert, I need to look at the various different data sources get a true picture of what's happening. Data science is used to clean up and make sense of the data. Because if you put garbage in, you're going to get garbage out, right? So of course, when we get the data from whatever data source it is, we clean it up, we make sense out of it, we plug it into the various different algorithms, machine learning, whatever it is that we're trying to do with that data in order to get valuable data out. But this is all done by our own initiatives. The governments give, the various different government branches give their data to the Dubai Pulse and Bayanat and so forth. And these platforms do a really good job to try to make sure that the data they get is good. Because if you don't have good data, it's really no use to people. And it is us on the private sector who look at this data and work with the government and say, you know what, I need this extra data set.
It's like a cooperative approach between private and public sectors.
Yes,
So-
yeah, absolutely. And the government, Dubai Pulse, Dubai Land Department, the UAE main branch government, they're very open and receptive to have us come in. We do workshops, sometimes week-long workshops, sit there with them and say, okay, how can we apply this data to practical use? How does it help the consumer? How does it help us as a business to properly educate the market and help the consumer in their property journey? What is missing? What do I need more of? And then they go back to the government entities and they ask for it, and it's a process. It's a process. I've been working on this for 9 years, so it's a process, but it happens. And as I said earlier, when Dubai puts its mind and wants to accomplish an initiative, and the 2040 initiative is a very ambitious initiative, they will do it. And they will put all the resources that they need to do to make it happen. And data is a very big part of it.
So would you say that the data that the Dubai government has is in the data lake? And if it is it scrubbed, the data scrubbed in the data lake, or do you have to scrub it after you get it?
Yeah, of course. So we have to scrub the data, we have to clean it, we have to make sense out of it, because to the consumer, we have to build products at the end of the day, for the consumer. So when they go onto the website and they're looking at a listing and they want to see what a comparable sold for of that listing for a like-for-like property, we need to make sense of that data to give them that information. It takes a lot of time and effort, and you need to understand and learn the data, but yes, that is what we as a portal do. That's what in Data Finder, like I said, is a B2B platform for real estate agents, so we have a CMA report in there. They can build a comparative market analysis report in this. And of course, we have to give them the right data to feed into this report that makes sense to the client they're going to give it to. So this is done. And we have this here in Dubai. Like I said, there's a few data platforms. You have the portals that are giving this information. You have the land department, and all of it is publicly available for free. You just need to find the right sources and of course compare between the two or the three. And obviously you would be new to the market, so my recommendation would be to partner with a real estate broker or a consultancy who specializes in the market and maybe in particular communities that you're looking at, to really fully understand the data and the historical analysis.
I have a question. What are your thoughts about Data Protection Act, since cold callings here are not allowed?
What are my thoughts on what? I'm sorry?
Data Protection Act.
For cold calling, you mean?
Yeah.
And like GDPR? So we don't have GDPR yet. It's a process that started before COVID, and then obviously when COVID started, it stopped. But it's coming up again, and the law has not yet been published, so we don't know what GDPR here is going to look like, but it's going to happen, and it will happen fairly quickly. As you rightfully said, cold calling is not allowed here in Dubai. You have a green list, which the Dubai Land Department allows you as a property owner to add your details to. If you want to be contacted by an agent, that is allowed, so you're like opting in, which would adhere to GDPR. But other than that, it's not allowed. There's a 50,000 dirham fine. Do I get cold called? 10 times a day. It just happens.
quick question. Is government looking forward to create a regulated such a MLS? I know we've been talking about the data that private companies are looking to do, but we all know if it's government regulated, it's a different standards, different rules. It's just people follow that. Yeah. Are they looking to do something like that, or what are their thoughts?
From my knowledge, and I don't work for the government, we just have a partnership with them. To my knowledge, no. They do have their own systems on their website. They have a branch, a technical branch called ERES, E-R-E-S. That's the tech arm of DLD. And they do have a few different portals there that are open for free to consumers to use. It's not an MLS system. I mean, with the way that we've been moving with technology and digitization, it's something that could very well potentially come into the market. But when and how it will look, don't know.
Thank you. And following question. As far as like we have code of ethics and we follow as agents, we follow different standards and rules in states. If there's such a thing here, let's say if I'm in collaboration, I'm representing the buyer and I work with the seller's agent, are there any kind of standards that agents do follow here, or they are must to follow? Or it's more kind of value-based type of system?
Standards as far as like being protected?
Like agency disclosures and type of ethics, like we have code of ethics that we must follow. Is there such a thing here?
From my knowledge, no. So as you know, we don't have exclusive listings here, or which you probably learned this week that you've been here. So anyone can list a property, which is how these fake listings come up, as I was talking about earlier. So 20 agents can list one property because there's no exclusivity. If you are coming from the States and you want to represent a buyer, I would recommend, and I don't know if Joe is still here, the lawyer, but what I would recommend is you have a contract drafted and signed between you and the owner of the brokerage, so owner to owner, and referral fees.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rafat from Switzerland. I heard you talking about cleaning data, and the step after will be joining data and gathering all source of data. The question is, how do you evaluate the standardization process of data? And the following question, how do you evaluate the maturity of the PropTech ecosystem here in Dubai or the Emirates?
So how do you make the decision?
The standardization of several sources of data when you gather these data to make...
How do you validate it?
Exactly.
Okay. So validating comes from experience here. So the first level is the data analysts that have been in the market, or the ones that I know that have been in the market for over a decade, who have been dealing with the land department data ever since it became publicly available. It's a very small industry. We all know each other. These analysts have been dealing with the data. They know it like the back of their hand. I've been dealing with the data for the last 15 years, and it's just been my experience when I look at the data to say, this doesn't look right, or this is not correct, or let's dig a little bit deeper here. Really, here in this market, it's all experience. You can't, it's very hard to look at a data set with an international kind of mindset to say this is right or this is wrong, or you really need to have the local experience. There was a second question?
The maturity of the PropTech ecosystem here in Dubai, for example.
So Property Finder, PropTech company, we've been here for 15 years. So they started when I arrived here. PropTech is a new term that we've been hearing here for the last maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. Recently, especially during COVID, it has accelerated significantly.
the amount of prop tech firms that I know that have started up and successful are looking to start up, the amount of people that I've met over the last few weeks who've contacted me on LinkedIn who are here this week for this event, the prop tech companies that they're starting and the ideas, it has accelerated significantly. The advantage of doing prop tech here in Dubai is it's a very controlled market, so it's easier to do it here than it is in other parts of the world. When I say controlled, you know your communities, you know the properties. It's not as varied as, for example, in the States where this house and this house are completely different in the same neighborhood. And also with the government initiatives and the direction that the government is going in, it's very helpful for a prop tech and a fintech startup here.
Sorry, I want to ask you only a last question. In the data collection you provided, was not mentioned something about the occupancy rate. So we'd like to know if you have, if you can tell us something about an estimation of the occupancy rate here in Dubai. So there are buildings maybe that are vacant. Is it possible that maybe a real estate project or a real estate development can fail, for example?
It's a good question. So, as I said earlier, the rental index came out January of this year. Ijari data, first time ever available to the public. It was never available on Dubai Land Department open data website, and it still isn't available today. It's only available through Muasher. Now, with the MOU that was signed last year, it is now going to be openly available to the public through the portals. So it's going to be up to the portals to decide, along with the government of course, how they're going to display this data to the consumer to help them in their property journey. When it comes to vacancy rates, this has been a question since I came here in Dubai. We will now be able to calculate vacancy rates, but there's other ways of doing it, which is why I mentioned water and electricity earlier with the Dubai Pulse data. If you have access to open data of DIWA, which is our water and electricity, you can more or less figure out, okay, it's not going to be inaccurate, but it's going to be a very good guesstimate on occupancy rates in any building or community based on the water usage. I think, as an American, you have American driver license, you go to RTA, the closest one is here in Al Barsha. You walk in with your driver's license and they give you a UAE driver's license. If you come from other countries, then it's a much more rigorous process. All right, well, thank you everybody. This is my contact details. If you have any more questions, I'm very reachable. And thank you everyone for joining the second day of the International Property Show. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow, which I believe is the last day of the event. Yes, okay. And I hope it's been very informative. You guys traveled a long way, and I know you're probably thinking and making sense, and this is a phenomenal place to invest in, and a phenomenal place to introduce your investors to. They will thank you for it. Thank you. Good night.